Our first panel of ASOTU CON gets right to the heart of the conference, operating at the edge of innovation. Joining me on stage are Greg Uland of Reynolds & Reynolds, Ed Roberts of Bozard Ford Lincoln, and Alan Brown from Sam Pack's 5-Star Chevrolet. Even when I doubt you, I'm no good without you. No. See, you think you know what the intro is going to be like until you walk up on the stage and you look at this and you're like, can someone send this to my wife that all these people think I'm that awesome? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me.
Man, thanks for having us.
It's great to be here. I want to remind everybody, the app thing we just talked about is also active for this session. And it's going to be active for every session. One of the things we want to do is make sure things stay super interactive throughout this conference. It really is a two-way conversation. So we want to unlock some things from the stage, have a conversation with all the other operators. And I think it was great that Claude pointed out the smartest person is the room, right? And we try to highlight some great practitioners that we think will unlock some thinking, will unlock some new ideas, and hopefully that is a two-way conversation that not only happens here on stage, but also continues on after. That is the beautiful part of this event. So let me make sure I have my questions open.
You actually have questions planned? This isn't just a
No. I mean their questions.
Okay.
We don't plan things around here. So the reason we assembled this panel is because we have a pretty diverse group of operators, whether it's fixed operations, whether it's technology and tech provision, the people side of the business. There is a lot going on in this word. Innovation is a broad topic. You know, you say innovation, and it almost becomes, I won't say a meaningless word, but when people say it enough, it loses its impact and its punch. So what I would love to do is just get your perspective on how you think about the word innovation. Like if you could just unpack the word, because I think that'll get us some pieces on the table that then we can start to shuffle and move around. So this is probably the only time in the panel I'm going to ask you all to give us a little perspective on the same question, and then we're gonna have an open conversation. I'm gonna start with you, Greg. When you think about the word innovation, obviously part of a company who at this point manufactures paper products and robots that deliver parts. So like you have the full gamut. So obviously it's a keystone of how you've been developing over the many years. So how do you personally though unpack the word innovation?
So when I think about it, the perspective that I look at it through is really through these guys' lens. How can we as a company help them be successful? I mean, that at the end of the day, when we want to innovate, when we want to bring something new to market, when we want to push the industry forward, it's not something that we're going to do. It's something they're going to do, right, as operators and dealers, and that all of you are going to do out there in the room. So for us, it's how can we help our dealers that work with us be as successful as possible? And that's really what innovation boils down to for us.
Got it. I'm going to skip Ed and go right to Alan because everyone is expecting Ed to be next. Keep it crazy.
Hey, good morning. I hope everybody's well. When we look at innovation as a store, as an auto group, you really look at, is it improving the customer experience? Is it improving the employee experience? You know, what we have to be so careful about is we go to NADA, we go to a conference, and a leader gets excited about a piece of technology. They go to the store, and they don't feed it from the bottom up, and they don't have the proper meetings and the proper time with it. They force feed it from the top down, and then they wonder why it fails. And so we have to be so careful that we look through this lens as clearly as we possibly can. How is it going to benefit the customer? How is it going to benefit the team? And is the team all bought in? And then after the team gets bought in, hey leader, how are you measuring it? And measuring it daily so it doesn't become weaponized, but it really becomes part of your culture moving forward. So that's how we look at it.
Mr. Roberts.
I'll change it up a bit. Our number one tenet is innovation, and we could say that innovation is improving a process or whatever, but that is truly what it is. That's enhancing the process. Innovation is something that we all struggle with, and that is challenging the status quo. It's doing what we haven't done in a way that we don't go try it, that we continue to overcome the obstacles and find a new way to do things and bring things to market.
Well said.
Could you give us a little context for both of your stores groups? I like that people would understand where you're coming from so they can contextualize as well.
Yeah, so obviously culture for us is a huge driving piece. You know, I was talking to Miss Silver as she walked off stage, and she could be a part of this conversation, right? Because, you know, there is some amazing technology out there, and we have to be on the cusp of that technology and the changes of it. But we also have to be in the human element side of it. So I really look at technology and culture as one and the same. And they have to come together or it won't be successful on both sides of the ball.
You touched on it a few minutes ago about it has to come from the bottom up. And we can think that we push innovation from the top down, but we never do. If we don't get our people to support it, they will push it out. So think about AI and all the elements of what that's done for us. Everybody thinks, well, that's going to replace us, it's going to do whatever. AI should enhance. Any kind of technology should enhance what we do, not replace the human element. And so if we get buy-in from the bottom, which is communicating with our people and expressing the why and letting them help us push it up, they will support the innovation rather than resist and cause the roadblocks.
That's right.
Well, it does help when whatever you're putting in front of them from an innovation perspective works, right? When it makes their job easier, when it makes them more productive, when it makes them more efficient, it's a lot easier to get buy-in that way.
Great point.
There is challenges that comes along with innovation because we are going to run into things that don't work because you can't think of everything as you put something together. You're going to put it out there in the real world and you're going to run into obstacles. And you have to be willing to be flexible to overcome those obstacles rather than say, okay, well, we tried that. And that becomes very common in this business. We tried that, it didn't work. Well, you didn't find a way for it to work yet. You got to keep trying it. And if we keep trying it, we'll push through those obstacles.
Little note for Gavin, our sound engineer. If we could get a little more of the guests in the monitors, that'd be great. Let's hear it for Gavin, by the way. Doesn't ASOTU CON sound amazing this year? All right, could you just give us a little context on your store? Tell us where you're located, what franchises you have, and size and scale. We'll go with Ed.
I'm in St. Augustine, Florida. I have Bozard Ford Lincoln. So we're a high-volume Ford store and a high-volume Lincoln store with a very large mobile fleet. But one of our number one things is we love to challenge status quo.
In one of the most terrible places on earth, St. Augustine, Florida.
You'll
never go there, you'll hate it.
You can't beat sunny Florida.
Such a struggle, right? So Dallas, Texas, I'm at the Chevy store, Sam Pack 5-Star Chevrolet. We also have 4 of the largest Ford stores in the country in Dallas, and we've got one of the largest Subaru stores. So we have 6 stores in that Dallas market. And we love technology. We love looking at innovation. But we also love slowing down and making sure that we have a really good sampling of our employees. And we have a lot of meetings and we have a lot of discussion about the integration of that. And we get that buy-in. And when we get that buy-in, it's amazing how different the launch of that technology and that change happens in the culture, right? And you know, you really got to think about that because it's either an amen or it's an ouch, right? You got to think about, are you pushing from the top down? Are you pushing from the bottom up? And the more we include all of our team members in the launch of whatever we select, the more successful it's going to be and the better experience we're going to get out of it. And the customer, the end user, right, is really the customer. What experience are they getting out of the deal versus just checking a box and saying, okay, I decided to do that and I've implemented it and I'm done as a GSM or a GM.
I'm going to take something that Ed said and ask a question. You said the goal of innovation is what? Improving the process, right? So when we think about efficiency and productivity, how do you approach designing things that help with those two things?
Well, it comes from the stores for sure. You know, one example that we'll get into because I'm really excited about it, and Ed posted a video about it on LinkedIn. If anybody didn't see it, when was that? 2 weeks ago, of some parts delivery robots that we have in his store right now, and we're rolling out across the country. So
I was really lobbying to have one on stage, and they're like, well, they're not like super fast, so it could be like that scene from, you know, like Despicable Me where the guy's riding on the old scooter, and you're like waiting for it to get here. I mean, it's not that slow, but it might feel like that on the stage. But I tried to get us a robot on stage.
But no, when you think about something like that, it's how do we take technology available, right? How do we take the innovation that's possible and solve a problem at the end of the day? And when you think about problems, and you can talk to it from your store's perspective for sure, but you know, when we think about it, it's a service department is selling hours, right? And when you boil it down, they're really selling minutes. 6 minutes is a tenth of an hour. That's billable. That's right. So how many chunks of 6 minutes can we put back into the technician's hands, keep them in the bay, keep them turning a wrench versus waiting on parts or walking to get parts or whatever that might be. So when you think about what's available and problems that we can solve with what's available, that's really, you merge those two things together, and that's how you get to innovation. So I'm curious, just your experience in that tangible example, what you're seeing too, because when you design something, when you develop something, and then it gets deployed, oftentimes those are two different experiences. So I'm curious what you've seen so far.
Well, from the last couple of years, we've all heard this 2 letters, AI. And someone mentioned to me earlier, said, why is it always named after a female? All of them are females, then AI. But reality is, we have this fear of any type of change. And because it's so widespread, that's what we hear is it going to replace my job? Well, it was no different installing robots in our store. You think that's cool, and it is cool. There's a lot of cool factor to it. You got different ones taking video of it. But ultimately what it is our people thinking, well, if we support those robots, they'll need less of me, parts counter people, everything, and I got to protect my job. We all protect our kingdom first, and that's what they're all trying to do, is protect their little kingdom. And so that's why we have to start from the bottom and lift them to our level and say, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Because they're more efficient at doing the things that they do. It's just like taking a quarterback and making him a defensive back. He's more efficient as a quarterback. But he can play the role as a defensive back because he understands the game. He can play that role. Well, it's the same with our people. They're more efficient as parts counter people and becoming more accurate in doing those things rather than taking parts out and delivering them, getting caught up in 3 or 4 different things that may or may not disrupt production. But ultimately, they want to protect their world. Don't change the world around me. So even though it wasn't AI, although there may be some of those elements that helps develop the program that did it, it is changing their world. So they're in protection mode. So the second day we had the robots, our parts people didn't use it. It's just as quick for me to just take it out there. We don't need those things. And it's simply because they're protecting their kingdom. They're thinking, if we do this, they won't need as many of us. And we got to protect our world. So those are the things that we have to connect with first to do any type of innovation, is express the why. Why do we do this? And we're all business leaders. We understand that the cost to do business continues to climb. So yes, we can't continue to do it with more people. We need to make our people more efficient. And that we make our people more efficient, and they will feel more fulfilled when they dance in the world more often, rather than dance outside the world doing the other things. So once they start embracing it and doing the things that they're efficient at, they will feel more fulfilled. But we got to help them bridge that gap to get to that point.
Yeah, so if I just bounce off of everything he just said, it's back to measurement. So are you measuring the new technology that you and your team installed, and are you showing these team members the benefits of that investment you made in their department, in them individually with this technology? And are you showing them the growth that's taking place? Because when you do that, one, you help yourself justify the actions that you took and the investment and the risk, right? We take risk every single day. So you're also validating the risk that you took with that investment, but you're also showing the employee. And I tell you, once again, as leaders in this room, the key is, how are you setting your day up so that you're measuring everything, not weaponizing it, but measuring everything every single day and touching every single teammate, especially if you're launching new technology, because that measurement is going to be rocket fuel to help overcome, are you replacing my job, the headwinds of the market, and all the other things when we start to take those steps.
Can you give us a little practical unpacking of that? Because I think in principle, everybody agrees, and everybody in this room, every leader has had an idea they were excited about because they saw a puzzle piece that fit in the spot, so they thought, right? And then you put the piece in, and you kind of feel an obligation for that to work because you asked your people to change, you asked them to adjust what they're doing, without seeing the immediate benefit a lot of the times. And you really want that piece to fit because you already have so much vested in it there. So I love the measurement openly as an accountability tool, right, for the leader making the change. It puts accountability on the both sides. But can you talk us through an example of something you implemented and how you actually got that measurement in front of your people to bring them along and be part of the process?
Yeah, I love the question. So I think if we all had to raise our hands in the room and say, hey, who's doing video? Who's doing video out of the shop? Who's doing video through your sales process with your sales consultant? There would be a large showing of hands, right? So we all know that's relatively a simple technology to install. But it's a difficult technology to measure daily if it's not in your daily reporting diet. So when you start looking at video and the utilization of video and who's pushing video out, and then the benefit of the video by the salesperson because they sold another car that was out of state, out of market, whatever the difficulty was, the technician, and oh, hey, by the way, did you know who the best salesperson is in your service and parts department? It's your technician. Go look at the videos that they do, go look at the response, and look at the sales that they produce. Great example. So we had a college student, parents lived in Arkansas. She was, I think, at University of North Texas, and hey, here's your coupon for your oil change, Missy. Go into the store. Don't listen to anything else. Go get your oil change, right? That happens every single day in your parts and service departments. We send a video from a technician to Missy. Missy forwarded it to her parents, and they said, oh my goodness, I have no idea that your vehicle was in that type of condition, and approved a ton of work. That would have never taken place if our number one salesperson, that technician, hadn't done that video. So if we know the power of video, are you measuring it every single day? Once again, you'll hear me say this a lot, not weaponizing it, but measuring it and going to huddle with those and taking a positive approach. Do you think that technician deserved me walking out to the stall and handing him a $100 bill and say, hey man, great video? What happens when the other 6, 8 technicians in that pod sees that? Hey, they want a $100 bill. They want a high five, right? So find ways to be a positive influence with technology. Measure it every single day, and I promise you, you will get what you're paying for out of it.
So I want to tease something out of that real quick, if you don't mind. So Alan, when you talk about measuring, and in that example, it's measuring the video, right? Who's taking the video? What's the quality of the video,
Sure.
right? But at the end of the day, you have a goal, right? And that service department has a goal, that technician has a goal, and that goal is going to relate for them back to hours, right? Am I getting more work sold? Am I getting more hours accomplished throughout the day?
That's right.
So I think just to tease it out a little bit, and I'm curious, I want to bounce this off of you. To me, it seems like you have to put that goal out there. Everybody that it impacts has to understand that goal, and then you can measure the metrics against the goal. So measuring to measure doesn't get you what you need. You have to measure to accomplish a goal, and you have to be very specific on what that goal is. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, the first pushback, pardon me, of a technician doing video is, hey man, I don't get paid for that. Hey, that takes a lot of time. Hey, you know, we did this at another dealership and it failed. Why did it fail? Because it was probably out of balance with how they installed it. It's not being measured correctly and all those other things. But, you know, the faster you get to, hey, look at your hours per RO. Hey, look at the number of one-line ROs. I know I'm speaking your language now, but look how many one-line ROs has disappeared, right? Because our best salesperson is doing a video and we're doing it consistently, right? You know, everybody in this room understands the business and knows how to go run a good deal. Hey, when we go through peaks and valleys, some of it sometimes is market condition, but once again, amen or ouch. A lot of times it's us because we get hot and cold in how we're measuring and how we're loving on people along the way. So you gotta show them the numbers. You gotta show the cost-benefit theory, not only to yourself as a leader because you're spending money and you're responsible for those funds, but how the employee is benefiting from it.
And not to get too far into the weeds, sorry, I'll let you go here in a second. But with those videos too, you're still gonna have declined work, right? You're not gonna have 100% close rate on videos, no matter how good they are. So another important piece to it, I think at least, and you tell me what you guys see, is being able to get that work when it does come back in. So the customer declines it, I forget the name of the gal in your example there, Millie, maybe, I don't remember what it was. But, she ends up declining that work. But you know what? In a month, she comes back into the store. You got to make sure that technician that found the work, that took the time to take the video, that took the time to send the video, gets that work back. It can't be going to the technician next to them, or all that praise that you did and all that measurement you did, they just see that and they're like, I'm not getting paid on that.
Yeah, it's got to be transparency in the culture, right?
So I'll tie to that because it all ties back to innovation. He talked about going out and rewarding the technician that did the great video and give them a $100 bill. Well, people will repeat what they get recognized for. That's just human nature. What happens as business leaders in this room is we try to lead our people, and then we don't get the result. And we shift to command and control, which, as Claude said, is the easiest thing to do. It takes the less time. We shift back to command and control. But we can't go back and forth. It's the trust and inspire. He's inspiring the team to do more with the result that we was looking for, rather than going out and finding the ones that's not doing it and going out and zapping them. It's going out and inspiring them to do and letting them see what the other person did and they did correctly. And if we shift back and forth, and that's what we do way too often in business, is we want to trust and inspire, and we say that we want to, but, well, when we use the word but, we just erased everything. And if you don't believe me, tell your significant other you're sorry for doing whatever, but and you just erase the entire thing. So we either trust and inspire, or we command and control. And at any point, if we shift to command and control in front of people, and instead of in isolation, then they have a fear of who they're going to get every single time. They expect the command and control from you, which stifles innovation. They will not support innovation. So in order to support innovation, we have to be on the trust and inspire side of it.
First of all, Greg asks great questions, doesn't he? He's a podcaster. He has an amazing podcast called Connected, so I'm just like, yeah, that's a great question. What do you guys think? Making my job so easy. So we have a lot of questions teeing up. We have 8 minutes left. So I want to see if we can kind of answer those. Was there any data? I wish I remembered. Were there some data points that you had that you wanted to talk about? I can't remember.
We can get into them. We were talking about
I would love to
technicians
get one
and
or
how
two on the table.
So the one thing that stood out to me, and we were talking about problems that we can solve, especially in the service department, and one of those things was technician productivity. And when you look at the benchmarks for tech productivity, and I define that as the percentage of time worked by a technician that they're in the dealership, right? So they come in at 8, they leave at 5. What percentage of that time are they working, turning a wrench? And our benchmarks have consistently gone down over the last decade, which was baffling to me. It's just like, why can't we be more efficient, right? Why can't we be more productive? So we've gone from 90% to 88 to 87.5. So we're on this trend line down.
Feels like the wrong direction with all these tools and technology, right?
Right. So that was one thing that we looked at and we said, why is that? And there's some reasons for it. We have videos now. Everybody's expected to do a great MPI. But if we want to see growth in service, we can't just keep raising our rates because we see that a lot too. So we can't just keep raising the rate that we're charging customers. We have to claw back some of that productivity. So when we take a step back and we look at everything happening in the service department or in the fixed operations department, really, how can we claw back some of that productivity?
That's amazing. Like, do you see that in the store? Like the productivity rate, and feel like the pushback is like, I feel like I should be going up, but it's actually going down or staying stagnant?
I'll take that first because we talk a lot about accountability, and yes, we need to hold our people accountable. But we cannot really hold our people accountable until we set realistic expectations with them. We got to create what they're responsible to do. We got to set those expectations and then measure it against those expectations. That's the accountability. To say we're holding them accountable by just taking what we get, and if it's not enough and then zapping them for it, we'll never win from that. We have to set the expectation first, and we've lost sight of that. We take what we get rather than set the expectation of what we need from them.
Yeah, people don't walk into your dealership every single day. And when I say people, I mean employee, team members. They don't walk in and say, you know what, I'm a tech. I'm going to see if I can just run 20 hours this week, right? I want to take a 50% pay cut this week. You've got to make sure that there's a very good line of communication. One of the things that we do is called a pit crew meeting. There's no stripes in the room. They get a chance to really talk about efficiency issues. And a lot of times, hey, we share those notes with the brand. So when you look at technician yo-yo, a lot of times it's parts availability, right? You know, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but it's yo-yoing them. And so, you know, the more you open up that communication, as we've all been talking about, the more you'll also have dynamic conversations with other elements of your business, i.e. the brand.
All right, I'm going to go to a question. How do your dealerships determine when and where to consider adding innovative products or solutions to improve things? Great question, right? It's a target-rich environment. Ed, how do you determine what you're going to attack?
I will touch on that because we have pit crew meetings as well. It's process improvement teams. And when we communicate with our people, we will find the time robbers. And you develop innovation around the time robbers, the things that robs the time from our people, that prevents them from being as productive as possible. Because they want to be productive. They want to bring that production back.
Are those usually pushed to the top by these innovation teams?
We stand at the top of the house and we don't see the obstacles. We think we know what the obstacles are, but they're the ones that's in the trenches. They're the ones running into the obstacles. And that's where innovation can come from. Once you get that, you push that up and say, okay, well, what can we do about it? Is this something that we can overcome? And the answer is always yes. It's how we can overcome those obstacles.
Yeah, customer comments. You know, looking at your social media responses, looking at your survey comments, not so much the score, but the comments, right? Because the customer's viewpoint of you should drive everything about your business, which has you seeking for that new piece of technology.
This question from Bill knows a thing or two about fixed ops. Fascinating question. If AI and robots get people focused on high-level tasks all of the time, do we run the risk of wearing them out mentally? Saying like, hey, if I'm walking to and from, is that a necessary break in the day? What do you think about that?
So that answer is yes, if we don't connect with them. But if we're connecting with them, what we're really doing by making them more efficient is allowing them to have more time to be able to spend with us and to be able to create those process improvement teams and continue to elevate that. But if we only create the processes that makes them more efficient and then continue to try to wring more out of them, then yes, we are pushing them away.
Yeah, you know, from a tech side of things, they will tell you there's only so many hours a week their body can do over-the-head work with transmissions and different things. So once again, you gotta have the human element involved in this. And as we do take on new technologies, guess what? We're gonna take on new opportunities to work through, you know, from that standpoint. And we gotta be eyes wide open as we go through that together.
Yeah, I think it's also important to not bucket everything into one big bucket, right? Mm-hmm. There are so many different use cases that we have across the entire enterprise, certainly in service, but I mean in the sales department too. We look at our salespeople, how can we make them more effective? How can we make them more efficient? How can we help them get more out of the time that they have? So yes, there's a risk there, but I think each use case needs to be viewed through its own window.
Yeah, I like the approach of like, there is no solution that doesn't create another problem.
That's exactly right.
Right, ever. This is a very practical question from our friend Michael Lutsky. Do you build time for the video MPI for flat rate techs?
Yes, they get a few tenths from that standpoint. You know, if they bear fruit quickly with doing the video and seeing the benefit and you daily working with them on the measurement piece of that and showing them the benefit, then you can approach it, and we've approached it both ways, where there is no few tenths or there is a few tenths. But you've got to show them quickly at anything that they're doing, video or non-video, pick a subject. They've got to see that there's benefit pretty quick in the effort as a professional that they're putting towards it.
And there's several approaches you could take to that, and the answer for us is no, we don't, because it's a job expectation. But there's nothing wrong with the other side of it, because we've got to create the habit, and in their mind, we've always squeezed everything out of them. Now we're just adding one more thing to it. So it depends on where you're at with your team. And so there's both sides of it can be effective, but either which way you go, it doesn't matter whether you're paying them or not if they're not delivering a good product. So we got to focus back on the product that they're delivering, the video that they're delivering, to make an impact on the business. Because if they're doing a good job with the video, you can afford to pay them more.
Did you ever pay them? Like when you first rolled out video, did you pay them then? And then pull it back?
I have gave bonuses on videos, but not necessarily per video.
Okay.
Yeah, the video companies will tell you that a spiff, you know, a positive monetary launch is very, very important in a case like that. Yeah.
All right, I think this is the last one we're going to get to with a minute left. How do you keep up with the pace of change but actually slow down enough for purposeful integrations and innovation? So things are moving fast. How do you keep up? How do you slow down enough to make it purposeful? What mechanisms do you have?
So I know I'm a little odd with this, but if you call me at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'll be doing the same thing every single day, Monday through Saturday. So I build some reports and I live by them. I literally could talk to Mr. Pack himself, or I can talk to a quick service technician. In that packet that I build between 7 o'clock and 8:30 in the morning has every element of the business. So guess what? The data, the numbers, it will tell you where you're rocking, and don't read your press release, too deep, right? And where the opportunities are. And then when you see opportunities, do you have the right tools in place to meet those opportunities, or do you need to make some adjustments, right? And when I tell you make adjustments, go to your team first, right? Once again, I started out talking about bottom up. I'm going to end with bottom up. These pit crews and other meetings that you can host, man, it's amazing when you get all levels of your team talking to you on a subject. There's always an aha moment. And guess what, leader? You didn't have it. They did.
Ed, really quickly, we're out of time, but I would love, how do you slow down enough to make a purposeful integration of a new idea?
I wrote a whole chapter on that. It's called Busy versus Effective. And a lot of times we find things that make us busy, but it's not necessarily effective. And that's what we have to do, is slow down and look at the elements of what's in front of us and determine, can it be effective? Not necessarily look at it always from a monetary standpoint, but does it allow my people to be more fulfilled in their job? And if that's removing some of those obstacles, then yes, those are the elements that you chase down rather than just have something to do on your to-do list.
Everyone, can we thank Greg, Ed, and Alan for this time? We're out of time. We'll get to the questions you posted. We'll share them. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.